So if you're looking for investors for your business, how do you find those investors? I think for starters, it's important to ask yourself, why do you want investors and what type of investors you want? Because sometimes it doesn't really make sense to get investors and it's just going to tie you to someone else that can really hold you back or create conflict or some frustration within running your business. But if you have decided that you really want investors or you need investors, then you need to determine what type of investors you want and how they are going to invest. Do you just want kind of silent investors that are just giving you some money and they're not really engaged in the operations and decision making of your business, and they mostly just want to give you some money so that they can get a return on investment, and once you give them their money back with some interest, they're kind of done with it? That type of investor can be really useful for people who don't want to give up control of their business. Or is this investor someone who wants to become a business partner with you and own part of the company and be very much involved with the operations and the decision making? That can be good. Then you get someone else working with you and maybe they have a really complementary skill set, but there's downsides to that as well. Or maybe you're looking for an equity investor who is going to own part of the business, but they're not so much going to be in on the decision making, maybe some of the kind of higher end executive decisions, but they're mostly just looking to, give you some money to help start the business, own part of the business in hopes that the business really succeeds, and then their ownership share becomes more valuable, where then they can sell it later. You can get venture capitalists, you can get angel investors, you could just have friends or family members that are investing in different forms. So there's tons of different options when you're actually looking for investors for your business. So if you are looking for those investors, once you've determined what type you want, then you can start looking. Is that a friend or family member? Is that someone you used to work with? Is that someone in your business network? Is that, someone that's a venture capitalist or angel investor? Is that some type of organization that can help with that? Once you've determined what type of structure you want, then you can start looking for that. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can kind of look online, you can get in touch with certain organizations. I'm sure most people have heard of popular TV shows like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. That could even be an option to try and get on one of those shows. And oftentimes there are, local versions of that. Here in Western Canada, there's an organization called Startup TNT, which does something similar to Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, where businesses and inventors can make a pitch to investors in hopes of getting investment and support for their business. So there are lots of different ways to go about finding investors, and just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But if you are going to do that, I would advise being very strategic. You'll probably want to have contracts in place, even if it's just a friend. If that friend's giving you $20,000 as an investment, what does that actually mean? Are they part owner? Like, do they actually own shares? Or if your business doesn't have shares because it's not incorporated, what do they actually have ownership to? And what are they looking to get back? Do they just want their money back plus, 5% interest? Or are they looking to, sell those shares in the future and get some profit on it? What happens if you're late with paying them back? What happens if you can't pay them back? If they're part owner, what decisions are they allowed to make? What happens if they don't want to be an owner anymore? So there are a lot of things to consider when taking on an investor, regardless of the type of investor. And I think it's really important with business to get really clear about how you're going to navigate those relationships, because a lot of relationships are ruined by going into business together. So whether that's investors that you don't know that well, friends or family members, a spouse, a past coworker, get really clear about those things from the start and document it so that it's clear, when things do change or issues come up, that you've already talked about those things to, avoid harming the relationship or creating conflict. And of course, things are going to come up that you didn't expect, but the more you can kind of document and talk about those things, the better it's going to be. So it might be good to speak with a business advisor, a business consultant, and maybe even a lawyer, especially if you're having investors that are giving significant amount of money and they want formal share ownership of your company, then yeah, you'll want to make sure that you're going about that in the right way.